Welcome to The Craft. I'm your host, May Globus. This podcast is a collection of intimate conversations on artistry, mastery, and life with talented, passionately curious creatives and entrepreneurs. Most are dear friends, some are those I've admired from afar. I hope you enjoy these conversations, this exploration of the humanity that connects all of us, as much as I do having them. Thank you for being here and for listening. The ever-effervescent Bridget Reichert is a ball of walking human light. The longtime sales rep for Vans is many things: an athlete, yoga teacher, breathwork practitioner, sales and marketer, co-founder of women's retreat, the Drawout, and co-owner of the quaint and cozy Shoreline Tofino. She grew up in Saskatoon, despite her very natural West Coast leanings. A water baby, she swam competitively for many years before discovering snowboarding, which quickly became her primary sports love. Bridget went into kinesiology after high school before shifting into finance, then finally marketing. A dream job at Burton got her slowly moving west, first to Calgary, then to Vancouver. It was after a year of being in the city that she joined Vans and has been there ever since. In this conversation, we explore growing up as a competitive swimmer, her longtime career in action sports and her community there, how she found her way to yoga and breathwork, and how they're essential to her being, the way the Shoreline Tofino came to be for her and her business partners, what embodiment and self-honoring mean to her personal journey, and much more. Please enjoy this conversation with the delightful, powerful, and instantly lovable Bridget Reichert. Bridget Reichert.
Welcome. Hi.
Hi. Welcome to The Craft. I took a little pause there going, did I say her last name right?
No, it was perfect.
Okay.
I was like, do I say welcome now or do you say welcome now?
You're perfect.
Okay. Very excited to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. I feel like in the last 2 months, you and I have been in constant communication, if not in person, just because of the retreats, which we can get into a little later, but we'll put a pin in that.
It has been really nice reconnecting with you, and just so excited for the area that you're further exploring with sound, and this podcast is so amazing. So I'm very honored to be here.
I'm so happy you're here. I was thinking about how we connected earlier today, and I think it was through our mutual friend Dixon Lee.
Absolutely.
Years ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Connector.
Years ago, actually.
He's a connector.
Yeah, he is a connector, because then when I thought of that, I'm like, oh, yeah. And then in 2015, a group of us took a trip.
Yes.
New Year's Eve.
A very unsnowy season, I'll add. My first season on the West Coast, I was like, I don't think it snows here as much as everyone says. It was very dry, but we had a lot of fun.
It was Baker, New Year's 2015 going into 2016. Mm-hmm. Great time. Mm-hmm. It was really, really awesome.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about childhood. You grew up in Saskatoon.
Yeah, I'm often pegged as a total West Coaster, and I just love like popping that and being like, actually, I grew up in Saskatchewan, the middle of Canada. Have you heard of this place?
Good old prairie girl.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of shocking through all that my travels and where I've kind of like come from, and shocking people with like the middle of Canada, and just what it was like growing up there. Like, kid you not, it is not just a story. It is minus 30 to 50 throughout winter. Growing up and considering your snowsuit for Halloween costumes, and, wearing your long johns under your jeans. That was very much a thing. But it was a great place to grow up. My family was very avid mountain people. They obviously raised us in Saskatchewan because that's where family was. And it was like a really good place to like be grounded and like be stable. But every year we went to Fernie or Banff, and, had a good long week in the mountains, and they were skiers and, got the whole ski life. And I wasn't really into the ski life. I was more into like cartoons, and like the hot tub that came with like family ski trips, until I started snowboarding. And then it just became this like other side of mountain life that I really was drawn to. And then summers in Saskatchewan are amazing. So lots of lake life. Grew up like ever since I was like a baby. I was on a sailboat. My parents started sailing. Not that they knew what they were doing, but they wanted to do something together. My dad was really passionate about it. So that started like a lifelong journey sailing with him.
And you're a water baby.
And I'm a water baby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So sailing, swimming every summer was just like lakes and, and then I got to experience the ocean and I was like, whoa. I think my first trip out to Tofino and like got to go to Hawaii and try surfing. And then it was just like, okay, Saskatchewan is no longer my spot.
Yes, you're like, I need to be by this body of water.
Yeah. It definitely was like this pull that I couldn't ignore. But super, super grateful for where I was raised and my family and my closest friends that are still in Saskatchewan. Like the people there are phenomenal. I love going back. I was just back this weekend for one of my best friend's weddings, and it is an amazing place to be rooted and have that foundation. But the West was always calling.
Oh, yeah. And here you are. Tell me about mom and dad.
My parents are amazing. My parents, I'm really, really fortunate. Not without the, growing up, you always have the like ups and downs, but they have been the most stable foundation. They are stable in themselves and their partnership. And it's been so amazing to watch them as we've aged. And they stayed in Saskatchewan and they have since also, we all have this like West Coast water bug, and they've moved over onto Vancouver Island, and
no way.
They've bought a sailboat in their retirement. So they're very much like parent goals on how to like age and, raise a family really gracefully. And, my mom and dad have been constant supporters of like any dream I have. They're just like, oh, you're probably going to do that. Okay. So let's prepare on how we can support you and, in their energy and their love. And yeah, they're amazing people.
I love what you said about they're stable within themselves.
Yes.
Each.
Yeah.
And then stable together.
Yeah,
which
totally.
Now know, like the way that I know you, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My dad, he has this thing, I always asked, I said in my younger years, I was like, if I can't move my body, I want to just be it to be done. And my dad said to me, and I was like, in my teenage years, and he said, I'd be just fine. As long as I can stare at the water, I'll be okay. And that is just like, he has so much wisdom. I'm like, oof, okay. Be more like dad.
Yes.
They're
so zen.
Very zen. Yeah. Yeah. Without even knowing it, very zen.
I love that. And you, what were you like?
Growing up, very adventurous. I really didn't like the word no. I always was like, having a time with my friends. I wanted, always like friends were, I was always the one talking, and my sister was 3 years older than me. And, we'd share teachers, and they were like, Tara was an angel. And then like, this one is definitely like higher energy. So I would say that we complemented each other growing up, but that also came with like a bit of push and pull. I would say, but I was always a dreamer. Like at a young age, I had this book called The Happy Book that I would take all the photos of, things that I loved, like ocean and surfers and like, the Roxy girl and all this stuff, and put this in this book called The Happy Book. And I was like a very wise young child. I like was looking back at it a few years ago, and it's like, I wrote this very profound statement in it, and I was probably like 10. I wrote, it takes both rain and sun to make a rainbow. And it's just like, I laugh at that person, but I still feel that child in me. I'm just like kind of an internal optimist. And yeah, it's just, it's very true.
You had your little vision book.
Yeah, I had a vision book without even knowing
what that was.
Yeah, totally.
Wow, that's really like, there's some foresight there for you. Yeah, and you were a competitive swimmer too.
Yeah, that was the thing. My parents put me in swimming like at a young age. Obviously, like love of the water. They're like, she's gonna love this. I remember hating it. Like at first, just being dragged down, dragged basically into the pool. Thank you, Mom. I still remember those moments. And with a little bit of force, I ended up just like really loving it. I peaked at a pretty young age. I think I was like 12 when I was like racing with like much older people, and it just kind of continued on. And I don't, if you know anything about competitive swimming, it's not a like part-time gig. It is all encompassing. It is every single morning, 5:30 to 7:30 in the morning. You go to school all day, then you have another class, another practice, 4:30 to 6:30, and then you have Saturday morning practice, and Sunday you get off. So that was a lot, and I was all for it for so many years. And then when I got into grade 12, I just like really loved snowboarding, and I got into like my friends, and like got into just knowing that I didn't want to base my, next steps of my life on swimming. Yeah. And all my friends were getting swim scholarships, and I was like, I'm good. I think that I'm not going to go there. And so just that was my like turning point to just explore other things. But it was a pretty young transition to like go from an identity of an athlete and then change to just like, who am I?
Yeah, absolutely.
At a young age.
But yeah, and I'm sure like that's something that your friends that were swimmers had to contend with later on.
Totally.
Right? Because there is like probably a peak at which you can be a swimmer.
Big time.
And then, but what else is there if
and
that
then
was
what
all
else?
your life?
And I think there's so many people deal with that in so many different ways, whether it's like being an athlete or being a mother, like being a partner, and like you just like you go through those steps and that learning. So it was always nice to like, okay, like that's your identity, like what is your truth, like so I feel like I've been coming back to that like for a long time.
I'm so curious, just something that you said about what you said to your father about if I can't move, then just that's it for me. I'm sort of looking back at like how active you were as a child, but also looking forward to like you going into kinesiology after high school. Like there is this kinetic energy about you. I'm curious to know why you felt that way. If you couldn't move, like that was it.
Because I've just always had this like energy like that is uncompromised to like be in movement and like that place of embodiment. Like I'm very embodied, and I'm like that is like kind of how I make sense of the world, is like through movement and like this physical body. So, fast forward to where I am now and through like all my, yoga and meditation and breathwork and all the things, like I definitely have a different statement on that, but I still am, at my core still just like, the movement of the physical body is like how I do experience life through, flow with surfing and like through movement on my mat and, snowboarding. So some of my most favorite and treasured moments of presence are definitely when I'm like moving my body.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
So like, yes, I'd love to think that I have this like Zen approach on like, I'd be fine if I also was just staring at the water. I would still just like have a drive to be moving and being in flow with that.
Yeah, your peace comes with flow almost.
Yeah, for sure.
So then after high school, kinesiology, you thought you were going to do that?
Yeah, for sure. I was exposed to very few jobs. So my mom is a nurse and my dad's an engineer, and I was like, I don't want to do that, and I don't want to do that. So the only other job I was like really exposed to was physiotherapist, because they were like looking after my body, and I was like, for sure, I'm going to do that. So first semester, I'm like, I'm going to do kinesiology. Great, perfect. At the same time, I had got a job at a very cool snowboard shop in Saskatoon, out of bounds and momentum. And it was amazing. It was just this culture where I just was like, this is my fit. Like, this is it for me. I became very disengaged with learning about, the body and all these things, which I had already learned so much of that through like my athletic experience, that I was like kind of bored. So I took the next semester off, and my boss at the time gave me a little bit of a break to go on a snowboard trip. So I went with a girlfriend. We drove like Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Northern California, all the way up the coast to Whistler. And then I was like, oh, I think I'll stay in Whistler. You know, I have friends there, and I lasted 5 nights. It was not my scene. It was too much partying, and it just like, I was in staff comm, mind you. So it wasn't like the experience that I have now. But then I came back to Saskatoon. I stayed working at the shop, and I decided on that trip that I would go into business, because I really wanted to not like work as a lifty, but I'd like to work in the snowboard industry. So it kind of came full circle back to that.
Yeah, yeah. And actually, all of your schooling, like business, like finance first, and then your shift into marketing, it all helps everything that you're doing now, which we'll totally dive into all the various things that you're doing. But all like those are so foundational.
It's super interesting because you feel this like, it's just so, you know, I compare it in yoga. It's like you find your like boundary, you like move as far as you can, then you kind of find it back and you come back to your center. And like, that's been seriously like my life. Like, I'm going to try finance. I have good grades. Like, I felt pressure to go into it. And then I just was sitting in finance, and I'm like, absolutely not. This is so not my thing. And I went to like the counselor, and they're like, are you sure you want to go into marketing? Like, they kind of downplayed it. And I was like, absolutely. Went into marketing, most favorite, like excelled. Like, I just loved it. It was so my spot. And like coming back to that like truth. And that was, you know, it's just so interesting how it all comes full circle.
Yeah. And you know, I really love that, because it's like, how do you know what you like unless you take that uncomfortable step? Sometimes it's an uncomfortable step.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, that's what you have to do to know, like, hey, no, actually, there's something else for me.
Yeah. And that's actually how I like made so many of my decisions growing up, is just like how they feel. I don't often get like stuck in like, if I do get stuck in something, it's because I'm like stuck in my head, and that's not how I should be making the decision. It's like more like where does it land in my body, and like going back to like that embodiment of like, does this feel right? And that's like not just something people say, that's actually like how I make decisions.
Yeah, yeah. Where does it land in your body for you?
It's just like in my chest, in my gut. Like, it's just like, it's literally my center point of truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I know when I'm stuck in my head, because I'm just like fighting it. I'll fight it. It's like your ego just like ties up the decision. You're just like not really making it from a place of clarity.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that battle between like the cerebral, like just the heady decisions, and then the body intuitive decisions.
Yes.
And so many people often make it from, you know, the top of
totally.
top
Our
of the
society.
head, ego. Yeah.
And a lot of them are made up there. Like, for sure, you make some decisions up there, but the really big ones, when it's like partnership, like moving across the country, big decisions in career, you have to, like, for how I make decisions, everyone's different, but that's where I like them to land.
Yeah. No, I resonate with you on just sometimes you feel it, and you know, like, you know, like it's that thing I need to do, or it's time to end that thing.
Yes.
You know, whatever it is, a job, relation, you just, you know, but you can't really know that unless you've practiced being more embodied.
Yes, totally. 100%. Yeah. You have to like, and you can start with like slow decisions, and then, you know, maybe take the big ones, you know, it could be like little ones first, and then the big ones come after.
Yeah,
but
baby steps.
Yeah,
baby
totally.
steps.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay. And so let's go back. So schooling, and then you got a job with Burton, which was you wanted a job with Burton, and it happened.
Totally. I did a project, and I actually really enjoyed just thinking about this because it's so I mean, it doesn't surprise me at this point in my life, but back then I was like, I did this project on like working for Burton, and that was like, I presented in university. You know, you do all these like projects of like basically what you'd like your life to be, and it was that. And I always like, I kept working at the shop, so I was like connected to the industry. And I remember just like always messaging, you know, his name's Aaron Corrigan, he was the principal rep. I was just like, are you guys hiring this year? Like, are you hiring next year? And, you know, then he came to visit, I think in my last year of school, and I just made sure it was very clear that he knew that I was graduating soon. And then I think when I kind of was graduated, my boss at the time, he gave me a call and he's like, they're hiring and you should go after it. And so I immediately called Aaron, and, I think he put me, well, I know he put me off for, I think it felt like years, but it was probably just like a few days because the job was in Edmonton at that time. And I think that he maybe didn't think I would move, but I was like very clear. I finally got a hold of him. The job interview was in Edmonton. My dad and I drove out. He's like, could you be there on Thursday? It was probably like a Monday. I'm like, absolutely, we will be there. And my dad and myself drove out. And yeah, after sitting down with him, I just knew. I was like, I don't want to move to Edmonton, but I will for this job. It's my dream job. And then by the time he got back to me, he had decided that it should be in Calgary. And I was like, oh my God, yes. My best friend's moving to Calgary. And so we all moved to Calgary and started that stage.
Serendipity.
Yeah, it was awesome.
8 years of your life in Calgary.
Yes, 8 years of my life.
Yeah.
Those were literally some of my most fond moments of working in this industry, because I was just eager and young, and Aaron was just such an amazing mentor, and we had this amazing team. Our office was so fun, and we just were all in the trenches together.
Yes.
We were just working for Burton, and snowboard industry was going off, and it was so fun.
The industry was so fun
Yes.
back then. Oh yes,
yes.
I
it was
remember.
Just it was that Jake Burton's documentary came out, Dear Rider, a few weeks ago, and it just hit home on so much. It is just such a special family we created, and it held me there. I never felt like Calgary was my final spot, but I was in a long-term relationship, and I had this amazing job and these great people. So I was like, this is a good life. It doesn't check all my boxes, but it's a good life.
And it got better. Because the West continued to call.
It got better. Yeah, there was definitely ups and downs in Calgary. There was my 10-year relationship ended, and there was a moment where I just wanted to run away to Vancouver right away. And then I was like, no, don't move yet. The right opportunity will come. Get centered in yourself first. And that's probably when I really, really dove into yoga and personal development, and looking hard at just heartbreak, and, just evaluating yourself and getting back on your feet. And that was such a big, important part of that. So I stayed in Calgary one more additional year. And then during that time of recentering, there was an opportunity that came up with Burton to move to Vancouver. And I was like, that's the one, that's the right one. So let's go after that. And yeah, Aaron helped me kind of slide into that position. And I moved, in the summer of 2014. Yeah.
Yeah.
And haven't really looked back, except for I still own a condo there that I would really like to finally sell. My Calgary chapter of my life has closed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking right now about how you took that year to recenter instead of, as you said, running to Vancouver.
Yes.
And yeah, I just find that really courageous, just because when big things happen, so many people often are like, I'm just going to run away from whatever that is. And they don't quite center themselves in it first.
But, I really wanted to run.
But you held on and stayed and recentered. And I guess that comes with, you were saying actually pre-recording about that clarity. You get that clarity, and then you can make those decisions.
Totally. Yeah.
That are best for you.
Totally. And I knew I wasn't acting from a clear space with that initial, that is a reaction. That is a reaction of if I just close this life here, I can start a new one. And that's not reality. We all know now, but there's those moments. So, looking back, I'm pretty proud to stay on my own 2 feet for that additional year, and it all panned out. So it's that taking a little bit more depth in your position and in yourself, And then the right things will unfold.
Yeah, and it's almost like you needed to do that in order to be ready for this next chapter fully.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Yeah. And then the next chapter ended up being with Vans after another year.
Yes. So, so I moved with Burton to Vancouver, and had a really great kickoff, like new team, everything. And then once I had landed in Vancouver, I was cold called from Jay Good, who is also like a friend of the industry, but I had never met him. And he mentioned these, of what was going on in Vancouver and with Vans, and if I ever would consider working for them. And essentially, like, this is the job on the table. And my now coworker, Stefan, had kind of like vetted me and a few other dealers and my accounts. So thank you for doing that. But it was just the timing was so wrong. Like, I literally had just landed and I'm like building this team and like new people and all this great stuff with Burton. And I just was like, I thank you so much for the opportunity, but I'm going to have to like say no if there's something other in the future. Like, how about then? And so just kind of left it at that and felt really good about it. Like, Burton was very much my family. Like, these were my people. I did not want to leave them. And then, a couple months later, Vans came knocking at the door again and was like, well, what if the timing was different? And I was like, well, that is interesting. That sounds interesting. And it took a little bit of time to like really feel that out. And I was like, well, how about we meet and, feeling out whether, I like these people or not. Like, I'm leaving family to go somewhere else. And so it was like a courting phase almost.
Yeah.
Which was really interesting. And I felt really good about the way I did it because I did a full season with Burton. I did the full first year with in Vancouver with Burton, and like amazing people, great team, and all of that. And then had a really nice transition like end of March, like after the selling season, and went over to Vans with like, no ties, and like ended in very good standing. And I'm still with Vans, and it's been another family experience, like very amazing people. And I've learned a ton working for such a big company. So it's just all really beautiful experience kind of layered on top of each other.
Yeah. Is Jay still in Seoul?
He just moved to Singapore.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he had, we worked together for quite some time. He was my boss in Canada, and then, went overseas. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And
Doing
you're loving,
really well.
Yeah, that's great. It's good to hear. And you love it. You love what you do.
Yeah, I do. I love the people. I mean, sometimes you can definitely, this past 2 years have been challenging. I think it's the hardest time ever to be a rep because I don't love giving bad news all the time. And I feel like it's just been a lot of ups and downs in the industry, and just like shipping. If it's not one thing, that's the next. But the people in this industry are the foundation. They are so incredible. And that is why we all get out of bed every morning and do the things we do. And also the industry, like the snowboard, skate, surf industry is so passionate. And it's just like this thread that like weaves between all these really amazing people, and like you just get a chance to like work and meet with all of them. Like, even us right here, right now, all woven through those connections.
Exactly. Yeah. That's how we met. Our mutual friend is like totally entrenched in the industry. So, and I've met so many of my good guy friends that way. Yeah. Yeah. It's through that. But, I want to go back to you were talking about your personal life and yoga. And what kind of yoga do you practice? Yes. And like, what drew you to it?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. So I think I was, I was just like a trained athlete. Like, you're very like go, go, go. And so you get kind of like trained in this way of like, go, and then I was like achieving and like all of this like doing. You get kind of in this, you're missing that you're missing just the being part. And I think I started realizing that I needed like more of the like yin energy, less of the yang. So like the yang is like the doing energy, the male energy, like definitely more on that side. And then that like yin is like more of the feminine energy, like more of the being, like the feeling versus thinking too. So I just definitely needed more of that. And my sister had introduced me to yoga like years ago. And it was at the time where I was like very much into the doing. And I was like, we're not quite doing enough in this 60 minutes. Like I just watched the clock and I was like, But at the end of it, I knew it was something I needed. Like I just had that, like, this is landing. And I just stayed really curious. I'm still so infinitely curious on the practice. Like, so we started there, and then I just started practicing when I was in Calgary. Really great studio yoga passage that kind of like helped me really get into this world, and like just really like feeling it in my body, and like where the poses are landing, and like how it's affecting this like subtleness of you. And I just kept going. And then when I moved to Vancouver, the yoga community is like very vast, and landed on One Yoga, which is actually originally from Saskatoon. And so that studio became kind of like my home studio, and I just got some really great teachers there that kind of led me down different disciplines and different paths. And it just started really, really becoming a foundation of my practice, of my like daily personal life. Is just like, if I could get on my mat, I could always find the like center point. And I would, get back from all these travels, and I would always say, like, I just need a moment to put my feet on the floor. Like that's all I needed. And that was just like rolling out my mat, putting my feet on the floor, and I could like reset instantly. Like I would be like doing on this trade show and this thing, and then I would come home. Or like I started, just integrating it more into my life. So if I had like 15 minutes before like a presentation, I would like get on my mat, and then, or maybe I would like be just doing a little meditation, and then it started to going into breath work. And I just got so curious. And while I was in Vancouver, one of someone I was dating at the time just was like, maybe you should do your teacher training. And I was like, don't want to teach. Like, this is very much like my practice. Like, it's a place where I can go inside and like look at like my inner scape versus like external. And it's just like helped with so much like self-actualization and like coming to center. But I was like, well, maybe I should go to the teacher training for myself. And so I got kind of curious with that and went. And by the time I was at that teacher training, I was like, this is super potent. And this is dramatically changed my life. And I need to share it. And it was so clear. And I was like, okay. And just like all those serendipitous moments, and, all these little like symbolism, and like everything that kind of goes with like helping you or guide myself. That's how I'm guided, is like everything was really clear that I needed to like keep going with it. So I came back and started like just teaching on like rooftop deck, and then started just kind of like dipping my toes and sharing some practices, not being the person that's like, yoga is going to change your life, but I'm like, take it or leave it. Like if it doesn't resonate with you, that's fine. And then, just really got into friends of mine opened this surf and yoga resort in Panama. And it's like that, we did a retreat there, and then we kind of, just stayed really curious with that. And so since then, that was like I went way off there.
That's okay.
The lineage I was initially studied in was Hatha. So, a really beautiful practice and postures. And since then, I've done another teacher training with Kundalini, which is, the yoga of like basically awareness. It's a little bit more like less perfect. It's more about like the energetics and the subtleties of your body. And currently just finishing up a 300-hour with Janet Stone, which is also like a just, every single, it's like restorative. It's like crazy anatomy, energetics, intuitive movement. So it's just like lots of studies and lots of breath work and pranayama. And it's just, it's incredible. I'll be a forever student. It's been something that is, it's just such a potent practice. And I like wholeheartedly like embody and believe in it. And yeah, I could really go down
Yes.
another a track with that. But
Yeah.
it's been definitely a foundation that's helped me just stay really clear in myself personally and business, in my friendships, relationships, everything. So
Yeah.
it's a foundation.
It's a ritual for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, during the pandemic, I started, because we were all, at the time when I was working at Rennie, all working from home. And I decided that I would start doing yoga in the mornings, like whether it's 5 to 20 minutes. And so I bought a good mat. I had a travel one and it was way too thin. And I do it now. I do it every day, even if it's 5 minutes, and I pull up just like a gentle morning stretch or whatever it is. And I can see the changes in my body, and I'm not even doing it crazy intensely, but I can just bend a little bit deeper. Like now I can touch the floor. I couldn't do that before. And so it's amazing what just taking some of that little space will do for you.
Mm-hmm.
And the more recent thing that I'm doing, on a recommendation from my traditional Chinese medicine acupuncturist, is he sent me some videos on Qigong breathing.
Love it.
Wow.
Yeah.
You don't even need coffee.
Yeah, I know.
You don't need I mean, I love coffee, but
a little breath of fire in the morning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and it's really beautiful too. I realized the first video that I was doing with some of the movements, especially when you're pulling up like the energy from the lower place, like from the ground, I felt myself like almost like I was holding a rock and like really trying to bring up all of that energy.
Yeah.
And then I had the switch in my head where I thought, oh, I don't have to do it that hard, actually. I can just do it gently and gracefully. And it felt much better doing it that way. But
it's so cool, the layers of all of these practices, and just like how they start like as in a physical body, and then it just becomes like more subtle, and then from an energetic flow, and you can just like really, you just like you're just watching yourself. And those moments of where you take that time to 5 minutes on your mat, it's not the physical pose necessarily. Like the pose helps us like find that space in ourselves. Of like recentering and really going inwards. So
it's your intention of doing something for yourself.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. I think it's beautiful. And I got a chance to see you do all of these things, like practice all of these things, and in some retreats that a retreat that you founded, the Drawout, with some girlfriends of yours, some dear friends of yours. And thank you for inviting me to come out there and participate as the sound practitioner.
That was
amazing. And I just think it was such a beautiful experience. Like I knew that the women's one was going to be like open and warm, and what wonderful women, and that's exactly what it was. And I also felt so much fulfillment from the men's retreat.
Yes.
Because that was really transformative.
Yes.
Those were men that really were brave in signing up in the first place.
Yes.
Never having done anything like this. And being open to all of it, the movement, the breath work, the sound, the talk.
Yeah,
totally. The conversation, the sharing, and the vulnerability. It was really beautiful to see. And do you remember on the second day of the men's retreat, I walked in and you were doing breath work?
Yes.
And do you remember the moment where I looked at you and you were just like, you were so hot and you were taking things off, and I was just like, I rubbed my chest as in like, I'm feeling this right here from all of them, and you were like, yes, like they were letting go and you could feel it.
It's such a wild, retreats can be so transformative. And when you're open to allowing energy to move in your body, and just like feeling like you're in because basically your body's just trying to keep you safe all the time. So you over time develop this like armor or this gripping, and it's a subtlety that you don't even notice that you are like taking on. It shows up in slumping your shoulders. It shows up in how you hold yourself. And, you know, you have to create this like really safe container for your body to like physically release some of the things that it's been holding. And that's emotionally, spiritually, physically. And retreats create that really safe space to do that. And there's a million ways to get there, and to a million ways to like allow that process to happen. And you know, yoga is so much more than physical practice, but for me it is, you know, a pillar of like how I show up in the world in terms of like that center point of like ethics, and you know what is true, and you know what is honest and kind, and all of the things. And it's also like, you know, from a perspective of breathing and just sharing your best self. It's becoming your best self. So just offering that up. And then there's, you know, breath work and sound and all these different modalities that help get you to that same space of like, you're all coming home to who you really are. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say there. It's just like, there's a million ways to get there, and yoga is one of them.
Right.
And, you know, your sound offering was so incredibly beautiful. Honestly, it was really an honor to work alongside you. And I think working with Taylor and Lauren on the Drawout has been, it was just so in flow. Like all of these things we just, you know, met Lauren, and then I was like, oh, we should do this thing. And then, you know, Taylor would be so great at that. And, you know, all lined up on a chairlift one day, and we're like, this is a great idea. Like, let's do it. Let's go to Mexico. And then, you know, we're planning the second one. I was like, oh my God, like May will be so great at this. And, you know, just like looping that community together, and the women that came on it, like some of my best friends were on it, some people I've never met, and just having that connection was so amazing. And then with Chad, a friend also through the industry, like met him through his son, you know, needing Vans boots. And, you know, then we just are sharing this completely different path of, you know, spirituality, and this offering that is just, some would say it's polarizing to my, the other industry, but to me, that's how they are woven together. And that's just all part of me and him. And the men's one was just like a whole different world. And it was, like you said, it was just transformational, and you could feel the energy of being a part of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And your partner Brian was at the men's one.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he won't mind me sharing this because it's a really beautiful sentiment. But we were just
he was just
chatting.
Waiting for a name drop anyway. So
there you go, you got it. But him and I were chatting after the final sound journey, and you know, he was saying how transformative the retreat was for him. And then just very sweetly, he also said that it being at the retreat helped him understand you more.
Yeah, that I could see that. And it was really cool to, I had some other friends at the retreat, and it is really like so sacred to share this like part of me that often is like, I don't know how to talk about it all the time, or I don't want to feel like I'm pressing, like, you know, you should do yoga. Like no one wants to hear that. So it just was so beautiful to like offer up and just relate it to like how I really feel. Like I always see so many parallels in like surfing and like being in the water and like being in the mountains, of those like true moments of like presence. And that's just like what we practice on our mats. And we practice that in our breath. And we just practice being in the moment so deeply and immensely that you are really showing up. Yeah. And so it was really such an honor to like share that with everyone, and of course have Brian like kind of be like, okay, you're not, like he'd be like, you're doing yoga again, like he's like, you just did like 2 hours of yoga, and he just thinks I'm in there just like chaturangering, you know, like just like downward dog, vinyasa flow. It's like, no, there is so many layers to this practice. And you know, sometimes I'm just reading and studying, and I'm just so infinitely curious, and that's what keeps me in it and accountable. And yeah.
Oh no, I feel you on that, especially when you pick up these modalities. And that's like me with sound.
Yes.
It's just, I'm just so curious. I'm like, I need to know more about science. I need to know about the frequencies. I need to know how all of this relates to the body. Like I can just go in so many different directions. But yeah, I just feel like all lit up inside when I think about learning more about it, or what there is to uncover and what there is to share with others about it. Because when you do, and they don't know anything about it, and they don't realize how much there is to a certain thing like sound.
Yeah.
When you begin to explain, like, this is what it does to your brainwave states.
Yes.
This is what it does to your biofield around you. It's like, what?
Yes.
But it's so cool to share that.
It's so cool. And it is so cool to take ancient practices where they literally had nothing to do other than just like study the self, and taking those practices and bringing them into this day and age where there's just so much noise, and like there's so much society pressure and so much just extra, that it's so cool to just come back to like some of that stuff that is like so foundational and apply it in this day and age, and bring science into it, like you know, it's really amazing.
Yeah,
so it was so cool.
Yes. Well, hopefully there will be more
in
collaborations in the future.
There will be more collaborations for sure.
And it was so cool because we actually also did the retreats were at the Shoreline Tofino, which is another thing that you do. You're co-founder, co-owner. 2017.
Yes.
Your baby came to life.
I just like light up. I'm just like
you totally
smiling
did.
A little like brighter. I mean,
you stood up. You sat up straighter.
All this is really so fun to talk about because I'm just like love so much of it. But Shoreline has just been such a special thing. You know, with all my travels from Vans and Burton, I love to travel, and I think, you know, growing up in Saskatchewan, I just like love to like go and experience something. And every time I went away, I would just like feel different, or like get a new perspective, or like new eyes. And I loved that. And I loved how like hotels, you know, we went to West Ed as a kid, and like they had the theme rooms, and it would just like, it was the most fun trip of my life. Like we'd go into the theme room, and I think even from that age, I was like, this is it. And I remember my mom taking me to a few hotels, and I was like, and this hotel has robes. And I'd be like just so into it, because it was so incredibly special, and it just makes you see something differently, and taking you away from your home and into something that a new experience. And so I was really, really inspired by, you know, travel and all these different types of hotels. Specifically, I was very into like Kimpton hotels, if you've ever stayed in Kimpton hotels. So we would stay at Shorebreak and Huntington Beach. And then I did a trip up to Santa Barbara, and there's a hotel called the Goodland. And I was just like, this is so cool. Like, it's just so cool. The bar, like the tile, the in-room, everything was amazing. And I was like, I just want to do this so bad. I want to create this. And this is probably in 2015. And I just kind of like played around with the idea, and it was like, oh, Tofino. Like Tofino is like one of my favorite places, like so special to me. Like they need something cool like this. Like I've never stayed in a cool spot in Tofino. And so I just kind of like kept with that dream. And, you know, someone through the industry, like one of the shop owners, was also a realtor, Jen Heckert. And I just like put the bug in her ear. I was like, if there's ever any hotels that are like being sold, let me know. Not that I had any idea what I was doing or any funds to like make this happen. But in 2017 in January, she like hit me up. She's like, oh, I think that you might like this. And it was early January. And I was like, okay, like I'm gonna come out. Oh, actually, prior to this, a friend of mine kind of like pushed me. She pushed me to like put together an idea of this idea and like put together a pitch deck. And I had gotten pretty good at like putting these pitch decks together. It's pretty much my happy book from when I was like a kid. But put together this like dream board of the Shoreline. And I like, you know, talked to my old boss, like my very first boss from Out of Bounds. His name's Kent Code. He's amazing. I was like, we should do this. Like we should always work together again. Like it would be so fun. And he's like, yeah, cool. Like see if there's an opportunity. And so then in January, I went and drove across to Tofino with my parents and checked out this place. It was called the Tofino Inlet Cottages. And it was right on the crab dock, and they were A-frame cabins. And I was like, wow, this is so great. My dad's a structural engineer, so he's like, this is built really good. And, you know, I still want that stamp of approval from my dad. So I'm like, okay, this is cool. So we just like entertained it. started talking about it further with Kent, and just like didn't align with him. And so I was just telling my friend, like my very best friend, Les, about it. And her husband are into real estate. They got married in Tofino, and they were like, "Oh, like if you're gonna do this, like we'll do it with you." Like I'm like, perfect. Great. This is awesome. So they kind of got on board with that, and they came out and we looked at a few different properties and looked at that again. And this is, in May or June, and we loved the A-frames. Like we still wanted the A-frames. And then I started like making a business plan, and my little finance snippet came in handy. I did a financial plan, a cash flow, and I went and like talked to banks, and they're just like, no, like you do not have enough money, all the things. And so learned quickly like what is required for commercial, different than residential. So just like learning by doing. And I said to Jen Heckert, I'm like, well, why don't you just kind of work with us on this? And she's like, I can't, but I know who can. And she introduced me to Jen Thorpe, which she's a lovely human. I loved her right off the bat. And she came on with another partner, and we just started working together. And like serendipitously, we all kind of like aligned on different roles and responsibilities. Like I really wanted to do marketing, Jen wanted to do creative, and Jess and Les were super good with like the finance and like the banking side. And we had another partner that we've since bought out, who did the other things. And so we've just like learned so much. And so in 2017, we finally got it cleared. We bought Tofino Inlet Cottages. We rebranded to the Shoreline. And then we just invited everyone to kind of watch us as we continue to evolve the space. So we highlighted bedding, beds, towels, coffee. I'm like, we just need nice beds. We need it to be clean. We need good coffee. We want to create this experience. And we started there, and then we just made it. We just are continuing. Like we're still just like so excited. We're just getting a new hot tub. It's so exciting. A Forest Cooperage hot tub. It's very exciting. So we're just, as we like, do well, we just put the money back into the hotel at this time, and just really are creating this like beautiful space and a really amazing. And it's so great because I could just go on and on and on about how lovely it is, but it's so nice because it's on the inlet side, and it has a whole different energy. So the energy of being on the inlet is a calmer energy. It's like calmer. Really, really like a big exhale. Whereas when you're on the ocean side, like the storm side, the waves and the water, it just holds a different energetic. So it's like a beautiful space to like really come back to home and relax.
I second that. It is very, very peaceful there.
Yeah.
And cozy too.
Yeah.
It feels like you're in someone's family cabin, and they've invited you.
I love that.
And you're just having the greatest, most cozy time.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. And that's kind of what we went for. We just wanted that like surf shack vibe, like kind of California cool, but Pacific Northwest. And we just like continue to just have fun with that. And I just like love my partners, and I guess I really like working in partnership. So it's been really nice.
Yeah. You're definitely a collaborative soul for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I just have a couple more questions.
Okay.
And actually, just something you said again about the Shoreline and coming back home. The idea of coming home and self-honoring has been something that I've really been intentionally, like it's really resonating with me, and I've been really intentional about making sure that I self-honor for the last, year or 2 years.
So good.
Yeah, it's so good. And I'm just curious to know, what does honoring yourself mean to you, and what does that look like when you do it?
Ooh, that's such a good question. Honoring myself is staying true to that centering, and staying true to my own truth. That often takes a bit of time to get clear on, and that is why I practice. So that usually means, if I'm running 1,000 miles a minute, I will often like come home and just like need to crash, put my feet on the floor, take a moment to, breathe, move, breathe, and try to come back to center. And that's really my honoring. And it's like it is an uncompromised commitment to self. And that is how I kind of get back into that. Because I am definitely say yes to a lot of things. And I've been learning how to say no and working on my own energetic boundaries of like, what, when you're kind of empathic, you just, it's a lifelong work to figure out what is your feelings and what are other people's feelings. So when I can define that, that's like when I'm being true to me.
That is really beautiful. Well, my final question.
Oh,
it's
okay.
the question I ask everyone.
Okay.
With what it is you do, what do you want to leave behind in the world?
Ooh, I want to continue to create spaces, both in physical places like Shoreline and, containers such as the Drawout, and, create that like safe space, and also on your mat or however, to really experience something different and feel something different, and have an enjoyable experience, something out of the mundane and something really true. So I feel that is what I want to leave behind, and leave the impression of, and even that could be as easy as like an interaction with people. I want them to really feel like they're in a safe space, and, no judgment, and just, we can have a really like fun time. We're in this life to have a really fun time.
Yeah. And to be true to ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, I love that too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this
honestly,
conversation. I feel we could have gone for hours and hours and hours.
Could have just gone on and on and on, and maybe I did. So apologies if we went over,
I think it was great. And
okay.
I just learned so much more about you.
Yeah, this is so nice.
Yeah, so nice. And I look forward to more conversations like this. You know, not even recorded, but offline.
Okay. Yeah, we're definitely going to do those. We're definitely going to do those. Yeah. Thank you so much. You have an incredible gift of sound and voice and all of your offering. And it's so incredible to watch. And speaking of, staying true is yourself and how you've stepped out. So like honoring that is so incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for saying that. And,
yeah.
It feels right. Like there's no other way to explain other than, taking this new path just feels right, even on the harder days.
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, this is right.
Yeah. I love
that.
So
I'm going to keep on keeping on.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. You have a gift. You're sharing it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed that last conversation, be sure to check out more episodes of The Craft on Spotify and guest photo galleries on the website at wearethecraft.com. Thanks again for listening.